While I was getting ready for bed, I heard a male voice yelling my name from my backyard while I was in the bathroom. I just ignored it. Didn't even bother to check if someone was really there. This was around 9 p.m. On October 2nd at 11:30 p.m. I smelled my great grandma's perfume in my bathroom 3 times while I was in there. It wasn't 3 separate occasions. I never left the bathroom. I know what she smells like. I have 3 of her brooches that she left me after she died, and I can't wear them because they smell like her. She has a distinctive smell, and nothing in our house except for her things smell like it, much less our bathroom. We do have an air freshener in there that's on a timer, but the scent in it was rose and is wildly different from how Nanny smells. I left the bathroom crying because it felt so real and it was like she was in the room with me. And the weird thing is that after she died, I kept thinking about what if she's haunting us. She died like 3 years ago, and I had no reason to think that, but I couldn't get it out of my head. On October 11th, I smelled it again, and I kind of yelled at her. I was saying how, of all the rooms in the house to haunt, why would you pick the bathroom? Now we weren't very close, so why are you haunting me instead of my mom? And I apologized immediately after, because I felt like I was a bit rude. I haven't smelled it since, so I'm hoping it's over. On October 14th at 7 a.m., I was playing in the kitchen with my cat Ivy while sitting on the floor in front of the dining room table. We have an umbrella open in the front of the litter box to prevent our dogs from going in there, and the umbrella moved. I don't know what made it move, but it wasn't my cat. On October 15th at 6:40 a.m., I was leaning up against the counter in the kitchen so that Katniss could rub up against my back. She had turned around and was walking toward me, and she jerked her head around like someone grabbed her tail and jumped down and ran under the dining room table. I've been having a hard time sleeping ever since my mom heard the voice. I keep randomly waking up and falling asleep. This has happened several days in a row. I'm a heavy sleeper. I've slept through a hurricane, and the only thing that woke me up was the power going out because of how hot my room got. I have no idea what's causing me to wake up. I'm not under any stress, and I'm usually exhausted by the time I get into bed. Any ideas? For everyone suggesting carbon monoxide poisoning, the only thing I can think of that could be leaking is our oven. It's older than me and shares a wall with my bed, but if it is leaking, my mom should be more affected. She's the one that cooks and spends the longest in the kitchen. She's not having any trouble with her memory. Our cats also love the kitchen and like to lay in the window across from the stove. They haven't been acting strange. As for suggestions to set up cameras, we have a small camera that my dad bought a while ago, but we don't have a computer to actually check the footage. I was going to try to record myself sleeping with my phone on an app, but it picks up the AC in my room. Sorry, but I live in the south. I'm not sleeping without it until it gets colder. Thanks for all your concern and tips though. My dad is quite abusive to me physically. He was abused when he was a kid. He has complete control over the finances, so I'm unable to get a job, and so is my mom. We're trying to figure out a way to get away from him, but I don't know if we ever will. Anyways, some of you wanted to hear more, so this is mostly about the woods and some small stuff that's happened in the house. So, for context, my house is a 1-story brick house that's on a huge hill. Our driveway isn't level, and the emergency brake has to be on all the time in my mom's car. The back of the house, aka my room, the bathroom, the office, and part of my parents' room, is around 3 stories high. My parents' room is at the corner of the house, so one window is very low to the front yard, while the other one is really high. This is why I said it's really hard to break into my house. Not only that, but because my mom doesn't work, she's home 24/7. We also have a streetlight on the corner of our yard near their room. I feel very safe from outside threats. One night, me and my sister were watching a VHS movie in my parents' room. They have a giant box TV in there, so we often watched movies. I was sitting on my mom's side of the bed, near the tall window, while Tori was sitting on the other side, near the low window. I want to emphasize how fucking tall that window was. I heard a metal on metal noise, and that's one of the sounds I can't stand. So I turned to look for the source, and I noticed that the screen in the tall window had been cut. A perfect horizontal cut was now in it. I screamed, and we ran out of there. My parents went to check outside and found nothing. No footprints in the dirt, no ladders had been moved, no weird cars on the street. Absolutely nothing. I found out recently that they never replaced the screen because Katniss had been sitting on the windowsill and I went to pet her and noticed it. I flipped out on my mom and she said it was pointless to fix it. Weird little noises always happen in the bathroom. We used to have this little muted pink coloured plastic trash can in there before we remodeled. Didn't matter what time you took a shower, around 5 minutes in, you would hear something tap on it. It was a very hollow noise. I don't know how to describe it, but I knew it was the trash can. I tried to rationalize it, thinking that maybe the heat caused the plastic to warp, making the noise, but it even happened to my dad who takes pretty cold showers. It happened to my friends too when they stayed the night. I always had to warn them about it. Anyways, this is the one experience that my sister can remember. So she had been taking a shower and we all heard this loud ass noise. My mom goes and checks on her and Tori, literally fell into the wall. Like the wall was caved in. We just assumed she had slipped and moved on. But later that night, she told me something pushed her. The hole isn't there anymore. It had been for years, but it was fixed when we remodeled. There was a plastic bag literally duct taped to it to prevent the wires in the wall from getting wet. The wall she fell into was connected to the office wall. I don't know if the thing knew that and wanted to fuck with the power, or maybe even electrocute Tori, but it was creepy. I'd like you all to remember that it is not possible for my family to move. The last thing that often happened in the bathroom were the shadows. So the tub is right behind the door, so when you open the door, it's right up against the shower curtain, but there's like a small wall directly behind the door. So it goes a bit of wall and then the rest is the curtain for the shower. And then you reach the other wall, if that makes sense. So when you're in the shower, you're facing with your back to the door essentially. When someone walks into the bathroom while you're in the shower, you can see the shadow of the door opening, someone walking in, and then the door closing. But the problem is that sometimes when I'm taking a shower, I can see the shadow of the door opening and someone walks in. I peek from behind the curtain. The door is always shut and nothing is in there. I would say it's my imagination, but I've heard my mom calling for me, asking why I'm in the bathroom, so I know it happens to other people. This is kind of connected to the bathroom. So the bathroom doorway is parallel to the living room doorway. There's a hallway in between where my room, my parents' room, and the office are. There's a painting that my great-grandpa did that's in front of the doorway, that's framed, so there's glass protecting it. Because there's a window right in front of the bathroom door in the bathroom, you can see your reflection in the glass. Sometimes I see a figure that's taller than me in it. I know it's not me, because my head only reaches a certain point in the painting, but the shadow reaches a bit higher. For anyone who might ask, no, the thing isn't Opa. He's been dead for a long time, longer than I've been alive. The only one in the house that knew him was my mom, and Opa loved him. From what I hear, He was a really sweet man who loved his family. His wife, Nanny, never remarried and never moved houses until she died a few years ago, and I smell her perfume sometimes. Okay, now for the woods. I'm not even going to try to explain where this takes place in the neighborhood, because this is already quite long. Me and my friend Destiny have been walking around selling those world's finest chocolate bars. First of all, this creepy woman wanted us to come into her house, so that was just weird on its own. We had been walking and noticed this marker in the ground, like it was a piece of wood with this orange fluorescent plastic tied to it. So of course we had to check it out. It marked this little trail. We walked down it a bit and started hearing running water like a stream. This ties into another experience, so keep this in mind. We would also hear voices, kind of singing, but we could tell they were working to cut trees. Not cutting trees down, but you could tell they were cutting wood. At first, I thought there may be a factory or something nearby, just because of all the noise. So when I got home, I googled the area and there's literally nothing in that area. No water, no factories, just houses. Years later, I actually fell down that trail while on my bike and sprained my thumb and got a minor concussion. So that's fun. We had been looking for that trail again, but somebody got rid of the marker. I guess it's plausible that workers were maybe clearing the area, but I don't know. So 3 more experiences. 2 happened with my friend Kaylee, both around the same time. So we had been in a tent in her backyard. Something was fucking with us and was poking at the roof of the tent. Her parents weren't doing it. We freaked out and went inside. Next one happened across the street of her house. Her house was in a little roundabout, if you will. There was a straight road, and on either side were loops of road where houses were located. Hers was on the wrong side of the road, so if you were driving to my house from her house, her loop would be on the right side. My house was also on the right side of the street, so the woods connected from behind her house around the back of the loop to the back of my house. Basically, I could jump my back fence and walk to her backyard if I wanted to. My dog Amber loves to jump the fence and would always bring back bones. Nice, right? Anyways, can't remember why, but we decided to walk into the woods across from her house. We noticed this little boy who was maybe 5. He was white and had blonde hair. Nothing too memorable. He starts leading us through the woods, and for some dumbass reason, we decided to follow. We noticed several trees with red string tied around them, like someone was trying to mark the way. We saw some creepy graffiti, but I can't remember what it said. There was an abandoned car where the roof was smashed down. We eventually found this river. Very shallow and slow moving. Suddenly, we realized how thirsty we were, so we stopped at this stream and drank a little, but the boy got his feet stuck. So we decided to walk the rest of the way to my house to get help. By the way, not once did the kid speak. He straight up never opened his mouth. When he got stuck, he just admitted defeat and just stared off into space. So anyways, me and Kaylee are walking and we end up at this drop down. The ground just kind of stopped and dropped down maybe 12 feet. There was a tree that was kind of like a bridge down, so we slowly started climbing it, but we heard yelling from behind us. Her dad, Jason, had found us and was yelling at us, wondering why we had been gone for so long. We hadn't spoken to each other this whole time, and it was kind of like we were in a trance. We both told him about the kid and how we were trying to get help for him, and he said he didn't see anyone. So we walked back to her house, and it felt like it maybe took 5 minutes to leave the woods. We never saw the stream, the car, the graffiti, not even the strings. Turns out we had been gone for around 5 hours. Last one was with Destiny again. Years before Kaylee moved here. Her house is past Kaylee's, and is on a massive hill. You walk down the hill, and there's two ways you can go. Either left to a dead end roundabout where her house is, or right where you can turn left eventually and end up where the weird trail is. The woods near my house connect to her backyard as well. So growing up, me and Destiny were best friends. Might as well be sisters. We loved playing outside, especially in the woods. So this random tidbit happened just near the woods. There's this weird plant that looks like a feather duster, but has long, thin leaves. We loved breaking off the fluffy bits and playing with them. So we were picking which ones we wanted, and I was pushed backwards by something. I reached out and grabbed the leaves to stop myself from falling on the road. And apparently those leaves are hella sharp. I sliced up my hands. Several times we had been playing basketball in her driveway, and because it was a slight hill, if the ball rolled away, it could roll all the way into the woods across the street. We've had the ball thrown back to us with quite a bit of force from the woods, with no one there. At one point, we found this tree that was absolutely loved to climb behind her house, but there was one drawback. Sometimes in the distant mountains, you could see a little white house with smoke coming from the chimney. Doesn't matter what time of year it is, if you see it, there will be smoke. It would randomly appear and disappear, but the vibes it gave off was so unnerving. It felt like hundreds of eyes were on you and made you feel so anxious. Anytime we saw it, we just went straight back inside. I, 19, female, live in a small town in South Carolina. We only have a moderately large population because of the Air Force Base. I've lived here my whole life in the same house. It was built in 1971. My father bought it with his ex-wife, and my mom, his current wife, moved in 2001. I was born in 2002. I'll start at the beginning, but I will mention that I do have a rather fucked up memory, so I may be forgetting things. For as long as I've been alive, there have been footsteps in the attic. I always try to rationalize it, just thinking that this is an old house. It's bound to make noise. But a couple of months ago, I heard bells jingling in the attic, like our Christmas decorations. It was above the bathroom, and the footsteps are usually above my room, which is right next door. I told my dad about it, and he went to check for animals. He didn't find any. Couldn't even find a place where they could have gotten in. He told me I was hearing things, and probably needed to go to bed. So I did. Then, I started hearing what I can only describe as footsteps coming from inside the walls. My mom heard it too. So did our cats. At one point, it was behind our coffee maker, and we were both standing there, scared that it was a mouse or something. Our cat, Katniss, was desperately trying to find it, but couldn't. My mom told my dad this time. An exterminator came out, but couldn't find anything. The noise continued. Then I heard noises coming from the faucet in the bathtub. It sounded like someone was trying to force it out of its place. I told my dad again, thinking there was a problem with the pipes. He found nothing. The footsteps and wall noises are continuous, but seem to get louder at night. I don't know if it's just because the house is quiet at night, so it sounds louder. I should mention that our attic is very short and hot. It's not possible for a grown person to stand upright. So no, we don't have someone living up there, and like I said, my dad checked and found nothing. Then it started messing with our dogs. We have 3 dogs. In order of age, we have Amber, Boonchie, and Zoe. We previously had Lilbit, who was older than all of them, but I'll get into what's happened to her later. Whatever it is loves to annoy Zoe. She's the most skittish. She's terrified of our cats and will literally move off of the couch if one of the cats gets near her. They've never attacked her. She's just a scaredy cat. Zoe will often wake up and snap at something on her back, specifically when she's laying in the big dog bed we have in the living room. She'll snap at it, lay back down, snap at it again, and decides it's not worth it and gets up and moves. This doesn't happen to either of our other dogs or our cats when they lay there. Only Zoe. There's something that could be touching her, and it's not fleas, because she only does it when it's in bed. The thing scared the fuck out of our oldest dog, Amber, twice. Amber and Zoe are the most needy, terrified of loud noises like thunder and fireworks, and Amber trails after my mom 24/7. I never saw this, but apparently something scared Amber to the point where she tried to sit behind my mum on the couch, and she's a big dog, a golden retriever mix. She's only done this with thunder and fireworks. None of our other dogs did this, just her, and she did it twice. No knocking on the door that she was laying in front of, which even if there was, she wouldn't be scared. She'd start barking her head off. The last thing it does to our dogs is the hardest to talk about. Boonchi is a beagle mix and is quite large. We call her Bounce because when she was a puppy, it always looked like she was jumping instead of running. Lilbit is a Chihuahua, Pug, Boston Terrier mix. Her name is obviously because she was quite small. My mom liked to say she was a little bit of a dog. She was extremely sweet and motherly to our cat Katniss. We found her under our house when she was 2 days old, and Lilbit helped with the things like making sure she didn't fall and helping her to go to the bathroom. Bounce is very neutral, doesn't scare easily, and doesn't really like to play. However, she has killed cats that have managed to get into our backyard, and unfortunately, those cats were strays we fed and came to love. Bounce and Lilbit started fighting, like trying to kill each other. The first time was the night before my first day of school. I can't remember what year it was, but it was within the last 4 years. I remember I had a coconut hair mask on, and I had just gotten out of the shower, so I wasn't dressed yet. Just in a towel, and all of a sudden, I heard snarling and barking, and my mom screaming her head off. I go in there, and we have to physically pry them off of each other. Lilbit was injured, but not bad enough to go to the vet, so we just separated them, and they eventually got over it. But they still ended up fighting several more times. I've gotten injured before trying to stop them, although I know they didn't mean to hurt me. I remember one time my dad just straight up picked Lilbit up, and Bounce was attached to her throat and was also in the air. Eventually, they stopped though, until a couple of months ago. This was at 3 a.m. I remember very vividly because I was trying to sleep, but was on my phone and my mom called me out of my room, and I was like, what could you possibly want? It's 3 a.m. And as far as you're concerned, I'm asleep right now. Her yell was urgent though, so I didn't even bother putting on my shorts. I just ran into the kitchen. She screamed that they were fighting again and she needed help. I ran out there with a flashlight, not even bothering to put on shoes or pants, and had to pry them apart by myself because my mom didn't even move from the back porch. At one point, I even hit Bounce in the back with the flashlight because she just wouldn't stop and I couldn't separate them. I was screaming for my mom, and I'm surprised I didn't wake the neighbors with how much I was screaming. It's so fucking terrifying seeing two animals you love dearly trying to kill each other. Anyways, I eventually got them apart and held Lilbit back. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, earlier in the day, Boonchi had come inside with blood on her, but we didn't know where it came from. My mom called Boonchi up to the porch and let her in the house, and Lilbit was just standing there. And when I tell you I've never seen her look like that, It looked like she had just reverted to, God, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like all the personality and sweetness just drained from her, and I was reminded that she's an animal. She looked so terrifying. I was a sobbing mess and was literally hyperventilating. I just sat there at the kitchen table with a washcloth, just sobbing and cleaning the blood and dirt off of me. My mom woke up my dad, and he had the audacity to be inconvenienced. I don't have the best parents, but that's another story. My mom decided that this was the last straw, and one of them needed to go. So I ended up taking Lil Bit up to the SPCA. But don't worry, we know she was adopted and is fine now. But it came out of nowhere. I have a video from when Katniss was a kitten, and she was literally giving Bouncy kisses on her face. I have no fucking clue what happened with them. This is so long, I'm sorry, but now I have to get into the actual, hardcore shit, if you will. The first experience I remember was actually with a friend. I think I was in middle school, so this would be around 4 to 7 years ago. So I was friends with this girl, Kaylee. She lived down the street, and she would often come over to my house after school and would sometimes stay for dinner before walking back home. That day was one of them. We had been in my bedroom that I shared with my older sister, Tori. Not sure where she was, but she wasn't in the room. My grandparents had this bench filled with toys that they needed to get rid of because we were older and no longer used it. So we were allowed to pick some stuff out and brought those things along with the bench home. One of the things I picked out was a Scooby-Doo stuffed animal. Apparently, it was called the Friday Night Scooby stuffed animal. A flashlight was attached to his hand, and whenever you turned it on, there would be a ghost shadow on the light, and he would say something like, "Cover my eyes, too scary," in his iconic Scooby voice. I can't remember all the phrases he said, but there were only a set number of them. I had it turned off with no batteries, because it was purely just decoration. It had been sitting on the floor in front of my sister's bed, which is on the other side of the room from the door. Me and Kaylee were called for dinner, so I let her walk out of the room first before turning off the lights. And I shit you not, this thing goes, "Turn back on the lights, too scary," at the exact same time. Me and Kaylee run out of the room. I don't even shut the door, and we're screaming about how it just talked. My parents don't believe me, of course. So we ate, Kaylee went home, and I ripped the wires out of that thing and threw it away. Before anyone asks, no, my grandparents' house is not haunted. I went over there pretty much every weekend and never experienced anything, so nothing was attached to the bench or the stuffed animal. Also, none of the toys my sister brought back ever did anything, just my Scooby-Doo toy. Okay, so I have 2 more stories, so bear with me. So my sister moved out when I was 11. I'm 19 now, so I have our room to myself. It's weirdly shaped. Basically, it's a box, but they didn't finish one wall, so there's a little bump out area. For the longest, my bed was in that little nook. We had bunk beds that were in that nook. Then we had custom built beds by my dad that were like lofted beds, and mine was in the corner. Now, I have a proper bed that's too big for it, so now I have a desk there with all my makeup. The bedroom door is next to the wall that the desk is on, if that makes sense. So the door is across from my desk, through my closet. I'm explaining this horribly. My point is that I can't see my bedroom door from my desk, even if I was facing the center of the room. So I was sitting there doing my makeup when I saw this black figure out of the corner of my eye. I immediately jump, thinking that my mom had snuck into my room without me noticing, but my door is squeaky as fuck. I almost always hear it, so I turn around, lean around the corner, and the door is closed. No one's in my room. I'm looking around like, okay, so what the fuck did I see? As I'm looking around, I see a black hand coming from my wall on the floor, directly in front of the door. I had a piece of paper on the floor, so I figured that it just blew up, and I just saw the shadow. So I go back to doing my makeup. I take some pictures, take it off, and sit back down on my bed, which is across from my desk in the corner of my room. Then I notice the paper is too far away from where I saw the hand. It is possible that the paper moved in the time I was at my desk, but that doesn't explain what I saw standing in the middle of my room. Now for the latest thing. So I have a weird sleeping schedule right now. I'm unemployed, not going to school. I graduated in 2020. I woke up yesterday around maybe like 2 a.m. Anyways, so my dad left for work at 4 a.m., like always, and my mom went to bed around 3 a.m., so I have the whole house to myself. I got up and heated some leftovers. I got something out of one of the cabinets, but left it open because I knew I had to put the thing back, so what's the point? Mind you, our house is old. Like 50 years old. Everything squeaks, even the cabinets. So I'm standing at the microwave. Ironically, it's right next to the coffee machine. And I turn around to put it back. And the fucking cabinet is shut. Now I know I have a bad memory, but I wouldn't have shut it. I don't shut cabinets unless they're low to the ground where my cats can get in there. So how did it close? I should have heard it. It's a squeaky door. I literally have to open it a certain way when my mom is asleep because I don't want it to be too loud. So I just ignore it and go to my room. While I'm eating, my mom screams for me and sounds absolutely terrified. I thought she got mad at me because I accidentally woke her, so I just yelled, "What?" Pause real quick because something just happened while I was writing this. I heard noises and my mom yelling, so I just left my room and my mom said something in the bathroom scared our younger cat, Ivy, and she came running out of the bathroom. So that's great. I hate that bathroom. Shit always happens in there. Anyways, back to this morning. She yells for me and I just yell back, "What?" She doesn't respond, so I'm like, oh great, she's pissed. So I open my door and I just see my mom sitting up in her bed, sobbing, and I'm like, what the fuck? She says she heard a female voice, and it sounded like it was at the foot of her bed. So I'm like, great, someone broke into our house. So I go into her room and shut the door, leaving it a crack open. I grab her phone and ask her if we should call the police, but she says no. So I decide to check the house. I knew I had let the dogs out earlier, but was certain I locked the doors after letting them back in. I turned on the flashlight on her phone and walked around, checking the front and back door, and they were both locked. I didn't bother checking the windows because our house is pretty impossible to break in, so I knew no one was in our house. She's still sobbing when I get back to her room. She said it was feminine, but it didn't sound like words, just mumbling. 2 syllables. All of my family members have 2-syllable word names, so it might have been a name. I asked her about sleep paralysis, and she said that she could move, but the voice sounded so clear. I told her about the cabinet because I remembered it, and it happened literally less than an hour before she woke up. And she didn't even say anything about it. She didn't go back to bed until my dad got home around 2 p.m. Bounce and Zoe were laying on the floor in front of her bed and didn't react to anything. Amber was laying next to my mom and was literally trying to sleep while I was in there talking to my mom. Katniss and Ivy were laying on the couch in the living room and none of them reacted. I don't know if she saw anything. There may have been something there, but my mom is pretty blind without her glasses. She has bifocals and it was dark. But this is really starting to freak me out. My cats will just sit and stare at a corner of the living room that just so happens to connect to my mom's room. I thought for the longest that it was the old man next door. The shadow person that I saw didn't feel feminine, but it also didn't feel threatening. I've woken up with bruises in random spots, and while I do move around a lot in my sleep, my mom would hear it if I hit a wall. I have no fucking clue what to do. This, along with a lot of stuff that happened with Kaylee in the forest that surrounds our neighborhood, is really getting to me. I don't even wholly believe in this, but what else could it be? How do you imagine a sound? We're not even close to being religious. I'm not really looking for tips, but I just need to share this with someone who will believe me. When I told my parents about the shadow person, they straight up laughed at me, so I can't even imagine what my dad will say to my mom. I saw her sobbing. She looked so scared. She called me because she thought someone might be in our house, and that's how sure she is that she heard it. I'm honestly so sick of this house. I just want to leave it, and this town.